So thanks everybody for joining today. So as was described in the registration page and the invites that you saw, today we're going to focus on some meditation and discussion around dealing with relative isolation. You'll find ourselves in a situation now where we're largely confined to one space, and that can be, for a lot of people, a disconcerting experience. Can give rise to a lot of difficult experiences, both in the body and the mind. Some of us might find ourselves in situations where even just going outside presents some sort of risk and can give rise to certain levels of fear. And so what I wanted to offer up was just really a basic instruction that I used when I went into my long retreat, just to start myself off and allow myself to settle into the fact that I was going to be silent and very secluded for a significantly long period of time. So we're fortunate that we don't have to be silent. We can, connect with people in groups like this, but still we may find that there are much longer periods in the day where we're alone with ourselves, alone with our thoughts. And so if you don't remember anything else from this call, I just want you to remember what I call the Marvin Gaye meditation. So just stop and ask yourself, what's going on? What's going on? Okay. Before we get started though, let's do a quick round of introductions. I think a lot of people know each other here, but we'll still do it just for posterity's sake. So I'll unmute people and call them out to introduce themselves. Brian, you want to start?
Sure. Brian from Connecticut. I don't know. I don't have much else. Any other details you want me to hit?
Yeah, let's do one more thing. Let's, if you could just say, what do you hope to get out of this session today?
Sure. So I guess so. I'm by myself, just hanging out. I'd say 80% of the time is fine, but 20% of the time it's a little weird, awkward. You get the existential dread late at night of what's going on. So hope to get some other people's feedback of how they're dealing with those kind of things.
Excellent. Thank you. Irv? Trying to unmute you and it's not doing it. Technical difficulties.
Okay. Good.
Yep,
all right.
I can hear you.
This is Irv. I am in Taipei, Taiwan, and it's a little different here because we are not in social isolation. We have it's pretty much normal life as is. So it's a weird feeling knowing that the rest of the world, all my friends and family, they have this frame around them,
Yep.
and they can't really have certain types of connections that they normally have. So it's interesting from this perspective, but also I do spend a lot of time normally during the day by myself, so it's an interesting balance. So I think hearing out what Travis has to say and everybody else's experiences would be very interesting.
Excellent. Sarah, I'm gonna unmute you. Hope you got to unmute yourself.
So I'm Sarah from Vancouver, Canada. I just want the experience.
Thanks. Annika, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay, so I'm Annika. I'm in Chicago. I have a different experience, well, similar to Irv, where in a way, where I'm not actually isolated because I have to see patients every day. So I guess I'm just trying to get like a different perspective as far as, while I'm not physically isolated, I am isolated to what I have to do. And it could be challenging mentally for somewhat obvious reasons. So, yeah.
Okay, Mom. Janet?
I've always been a very independent person, very okay with being by myself, large part of the time. However, this is different. Definitely you feel kind of like you have the blues. You know, you just can't reach out and, you know, and see people and talk to people the way you used to. And so this kind of aloneness is totally different than when it's my choice to be, you know, spend time by myself. So.
Yep, I understand that. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I think that all of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to help pretty much everybody, regardless of whether you're or not you're in social isolation. So like I said, it's very, very basic instruction just to check in with ourselves and see what's going on. And so I'm going to split it into 3 different areas of our experience. The first one is the experience of the body. The second is the experience of what we call, what's often translated as feeling tone. So feeling tone is whether or not an experience is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And then the last way is to connect with our thoughts and kind of see what's going on inside of our minds, what mind states are present, what emotions are there, if there's any impulses, things of that nature. So, and really, the reason why I think that this will provide some help, it's not like I'm going through and saying, okay, you have loneliness, this is the way that you solve for loneliness. That's not what this session is going to be, and nor do I necessarily think that that's something that somebody can just tell you. What this does is it brings a curiosity to our own experience. And if we bring just love and attentiveness to every aspect of our experience, what we may find is that some wisdom opens up for us that maybe we didn't previously have access to. So I'd like to start now just with a brief meditation that's focused on the body. We're going to do what's called a body scan meditation, where we're just at a moderate pace without rushing. We're running our attention through the body. So just as a little taste, a little precursor, if everybody could just bring their attention right now to the soles of their feet. If your feet are on the ground, just notice any pressure, tingling, sense of temperature, whatever it is that your experience is, just have a bare awareness of that. And so in all the times that I've given this instruction, I've never had anybody say that that act was difficult. The sensations that they met might be difficult, but the amount of energy that it requires to just bring our attention into our body it's not great. And so I want us to apply the same sort of gentle energy to the meditation as we go through it. So not grasping at our experience, but just allowing the attention to rest. So just find a posture that's comfortable for you. You can begin with the eyes closed, or if you prefer to have them open, you can just have a very soft gaze a few feet out in front of you. And starting at the opposite end of the body, let's just bring our attention to the crown of our head. Right off the bat, you might notice that just the felt sensation of the crown of the head is quite different from the sensation that you found at the soles of your feet. Might be much more subtle. Just as we bring our attention to each aspect of the body, once we've taken a mental inventory of what we find there, we can invite the area to soften. If there's any holding, any contraction there, we can just send the message that it's okay to let go right now. And bringing the awareness down into the forehead area. Noticing any contraction in the brow. And then gently inviting it to soften. And moving down now the front of the face to the eyes, the muscles around the eyes. Again, just taking a moment to pause before we invite to soften, to notice any sensations that are there. And just notice, have we been holding tension? Is this how we've been moving throughout our day? And then inviting it to soften. Down now to the jaw area. Noticing clenching or any sensations there. And moving down to the neck, starting with the back of the neck. And then the throat. Allowing the throat to be open and soft, and allowing the breath to pass through freely. Even perhaps allowing the tongue to soften in order to support the throat. Noticing any changes in sensation in the throat that come from the in-breath and the out-breath. Just allowing the attention to follow the sensation as it arises and passes away. Then moving now to the shoulders. Noticing whether or not our shoulders have been spending a lot of time hanging out with our ears. And if possible, just inviting them to soften, to relax down. Being mindful of any sensations that are there. And noticing if we find that softening doesn't come. Is there any frustration that arises, or any thoughts or stories about why it might be that we still feel this tightness? Just allowing that to be, allowing the thoughts to arise and pass away, and just letting them go. And bringing the attention now into the chest. Staying present with the movement of the chest. The breath arises and falls. And just setting an intention that throughout the rest of the discussion period and through the next meditations that'll be offered, to try to remain mindful and keep our awareness on our breath wherever we feel it most predominantly, whether it's in our chest or in the rise and fall of the shoulders or sensations in the throat. Just keeping that as an anchor in the body as we talk and as we listen. Trying to remain mindful of any changes in the body as something that we've heard or some thought that we want to say. Is it causing any tension to arise in the body? Or have we found that there's been softening? Somebody said something that resonated with us and allowed the body to relax, made us feel safe. So just holding that intention gently as we open our eyes, reconnect with the group. So in the body scan meditation, what would typically happen is you would continue on throughout the rest of the body. Given the amount of time that we had, I wanted to stop now and just allow time for discussion. So around the discussion, I want us to stay focused on what was our experience of the meditation, or we could say, what is our experience if we're doing these types of meditations on a more regular basis? What is our experience like are there any patterns? Do we find that certain things are continuously coming up as we remain mindful and aware of the body? So staying focused on our own personal experience, and if anybody offers anything, trying to refrain from any crosstalk or advice giving. This is just a space for sharing. So just opening it up now. If anybody has any reflections or remarks on the practice, anything that you noticed, the floor is yours. You can unmute yourself. And if you have trouble unmuting yourself, just wave your hand. We all know how technology can be.
I noticed that when we move to a new body part, body section, that I had the urge to have some kind of movement, kind of awaken that area, to just to know that it was like still there, you know, because you're not noticing most of your body most of the day. So, you know, especially during a body scan meditation, I try to put in a little bit of movement and try to feel the sensations there.
Nice.
I would say I
Have you
had
found that?
the
Oh,
opposite.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Anka.
Oh, I was
No,
going to
please.
say I have the opposite kind of feelings when I do this type of like practice, where I just hone in on the tension that's already there. So like in my body, especially up here, like when my eyes were closed, it took them a long time to just relax. So like that was already there. So it's not reminding myself that they're there. It's reminding them to chill out in my case.
Yep. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. Anybody have a different experience? Anything that they noticed coming up?
Well,
Any sort? Yep.
I for one, in all the practices that I've done, I don't believe I've ever really paid attention to the crown area.
Yep.
It's always been more, you know, sitting and feeling, you know, either the chair, the floor, whatever. I've never, I don't think, gone up far enough. And yes, you relax your eyes. I mean, that's one of the first things you do. But I don't think I've ever really gone up to really concentrate and pay attention to the crown, which was unique.
I find the crown to be, for me, is hands down the most challenging thing to bring my awareness to. When I go to the crown of my head, I actually found with the hat on, it was much easier because I could feel the pressure on my hair.
Interesting.
When I have the beanie off, it's just like, where's the crown? How can I feel it? So it's kind of similar to Herb's experience. Really quick story. So a lot of us here are familiar with Joseph Goldstein. So I sat a retreat with Joseph Goldstein, and sometimes I was a naughty boy and I would open my eyes and watch him meditate. And Joseph Goldstein will sometimes wiggle his ears by like tightening the crown of his head during the meditation. Very funny to watch. If you ever sit with him, highly recommend it. But Brian or Sarah, is there anything you want to share? Just give a thumbs up if you're okay to continue on. Okay. So all of that, thank you for sharing. That was really good. I'm glad that everybody engaged with the practice. So the next thing that I'd like to invite us to kind of ask that question, what's going on, is we're going to take that same meditation, but we're going to shift the attention just very subtly to notice each of our experiences. Is there some sort of underlying, what's called feeling tone to them? So is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Or is it neither pleasant nor unpleasant? Okay. And that's really the bare level that we want to know. We just want to know, okay, I'm breathing. I feel coolness in my throat. I find it to be just mildly pleasant, okay? So we're gonna do pretty much a very similar type of meditation where our awareness is resting in our body. I am gonna have us focus a bit more on the breath. But if there's any predominant sensations that arise in the body, just notice, is this pleasant, is this unpleasant, or is this neither pleasant nor unpleasant? And just notice the tendency of mind to, does the attention, is it drawn to pleasant? Is it drawn to unpleasant? Does the attention try to run away from unpleasant? Just notice that experience, and also notice how the kind of feedback system in the body works. So if we notice that unpleasant sensations cause our attention to want to drift, does that produce tension in the body? Does drawing the attention towards pleasant sensations produce softening in the body? Just a bare knowing, not trying to make anything happen, whatever arises. So we can just close our eyes again, gently. Just checking in with our body and seeing wherever we feel the breath most predominantly to start. The places where you might feel the breath are at the nostrils or the lips, where the air is passing through. You notice they're inside the mouth or the nostrils, sensations of change in temperature, dryness and moisture. The back of the throat. You might feel it most predominantly in the rise and fall of the shoulders, the chest or the abdomen. You might feel it most strongly inside of the lungs, the sensation of expansion and contraction. Maybe even at the top of the lungs where the airways split. Just allowing your attention to rest on the most predominant sensation. Noticing, am I experiencing this now as pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant? And then in the next moment, has it changed? Carrying on like this with whatever bodily sensations arise. Just bringing the same level of energy and effort that it took us to bring the attention into the body, bringing that same level of effort to bringing our attention to the felt experience of that as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Just allowing our attention to rest on that feeling tone. And then noticing whether or not the attention seems to be drawn towards the experience or repelled by the experience or relatively indifferent to the experience. How does the attention change depending on what the feeling tone of our bodily sensation is? If we find that we're repelled, just gently recommitting to allowing the attention to rest on the experience. If we find that we're drawn in, still trying to remain mindful of the body, of the changing sensations, not grasping at our experience. If we find that we're indifferent, maybe trying to bring a little bit more energy and curiosity to that experience. And noticing based on that, what has happened in the body. If we were with an unpleasant sensation that we felt repelled by, and we did recommit our attention to remaining with that experience, what happened in the body? Was there tightening around that experience, or was there potentially softening, or no change at all? The pleasant experience, did we find that when we reminded the attention not to get lost in the feelings of pleasantness, but to remain grounded within the body, what happened then? Was there any change in the body when we brought additional curiosity and energy to neither pleasant nor unpleasant experience? And then again, just setting the intention to remain mindful of the feeling tone that arises when we hear things in the discussion period. Allowing our attention to be present with that. Noticing any arisings or passing away in the body. Just a gentle intention to attend to the feeling tone as we listen and speak. You can gently open your eyes. Okay, the floor is yours. What experiences arose? Any cycles of, oh, I brought my attention to this aspect of the body. I noticed that there was a pleasant feeling tone. I noticed this was the inclination of the intention when meeting that feeling tone. I noticed that when I applied the instructions to the attention, this is what happened in the body. Or questions or anything. Go, Annika.
Okay. So I noticed immediately when you like started with just like the breath on like the lips, like I could feel like everything was like, I don't want to be focusing on that. Like I just felt like a lot of tension arise from that. And then when we got to like the throat, I felt like more of a release. And then when you got to the lungs, again, like the tension arose, so that I knew that like, okay, clearly like doing like the ujjayi breathing for me, like really is something that I would go back to and would just, everything would calm. But if I tried focusing somewhere else, it was like tension immediately. So that was very interesting.
Yep. And did you find that, so when the when the tension, too many words ending in tension. When the tension arose, were you mindful of the feeling tone of it, that it was unpleasant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
So like
what
some of them I
happened?
recognized was like in between, like whatever, the nostrils, I could feel the sensation of the hot versus, you know, the moist versus dry. That didn't really bother me, but like the breath in like the lungs, the attention there, I felt created an unpleasant sensation.
Unpleasant feeling tone. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then did the attention, was it drawn then to the parts of the body where the tension didn't arise?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so if you applied the attention to a feeling tone that was unpleasant, the tension would just continue to build?
Yes. I could feel like anxiety building in the body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Body wisdom right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Love it. Anyone else?
I have a quick one, which is, oh, sorry. You can go.
Oh, it's okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay. I had a quick one, which was, for most of it, I had an itch like right below my nose. And I find that's always fun when you're like meditating and stuff, because usually you'd instantly just itch it and it goes away. When like you decide, oh, you know, I'm just going to experience this for a while, it goes from being annoying to kind of pleasant to like ride, like the itch like coming and going as you're breathing and doing other stuff.
Yeah, that's good practice. Like I said in the beginning of the meditation, I know that I focused and kind of brought our attention to the breath, but any predominant bodily sensation is, you know, it's a candidate for doing this type of meditation. It's not exclusively restricted to the breath. So that's great, Brian. So you noticed the itch. You noticed the attention was drawn to the itch. You noticed that it was unpleasant to begin with. But then, as the mind began to shift its orientation towards the itch, the feeling tone itself shifted with the exact same bodily sensation. The feeling tone became different depending on how we oriented to it. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's kind of like, oh, let's ride this up. Let's see how this, let's see what happens. And it's kind of.
Yep, that's great.
Well, my experience was almost exactly like Brian's as far as itching goes. It's, you know, allergy season in Michigan right now.
Yep.
Except mine was different in that if I tried to, if as the itch was happening and I was focusing on it, it became extreme. What started as a small, oh, you know, I need to itch that, all of a sudden was extreme itch and tingling. But if I paid attention and drew more to my breath, it would calm down and wouldn't disappear. It was always there, but it wasn't the main focus.
Got it.
So,
And so it was unpleasant.
yeah.
Did you find that the attention was drawn to the itch, or was it relatively free? It sounded like you could move it to.
I could move. Yes, I could move it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And what was sort of strange was that what started out as one small itch, all of a sudden it happened on my cheek, on my neck. It's like I was having feelings of itchiness everywhere. But then as I just, you know, slowly went back to my breath, then when you go back to your breath, you also, at least I do, pay attention to softening the body. So as you soften the body, what was itching like crazy before sort of softens also. So.
Yep. That's great. Anything else? I do want to get us kicked off on the next thing so that we have a little bit of time at the end to just discuss. So the next aspect that I want us to bring our curious and loving attention to is our mind states. So what we can often find is that in this chain of events, so we have a bodily sensation, we have a feeling tone that's associated with that, we might find that certain mind states arise, either thoughts of, I want more of that, or why is that happening, or how can I get rid of this, things of that nature. So these are not always the easiest things to bring our attention to. They can be a little bit more slippery, but I've found in my own practice, and this is how I kind of approach my retreats too, is that when I move through the progression of body, feeling, tone, mind, like thoughts or mind states, I actually find it easier to stay with the thoughts because they're grounded or rooted in the bodily experience that I've been having. So this time, I want us to bring our attention to the body, have a general sense of the feeling tone, but notice any thoughts that arise, or not just thoughts, mind states. So if we find that we get frustrated, for example, there might be a kind of a lens of frustration and then frustrated thoughts that come along with it. This is one of the other reasons why the mind can be a more challenging object of meditation to work with, because of the various layers that kind of blend together to create sort of a seamless experience of the reality of mind. It's hard without really bringing our attention to our mind to differentiate between an overall mind state of frustration, for example, the frustrated thoughts that are associated with it, and then any like impulses in the mind that might come to alleviate the frustration. Those things kind of all blend together. But I would encourage us to try to see what is the mood or underlying emotion that is characterizing my experience. And it might be boredom, it might be joy, could be any variety of things. And what are the thoughts that are associated with that? And are there any impulses that arise that to make something happen, either in the body or in the mind? What's our inclination there? So again, beginning with the body, be mindful of the feeling tone, and then moving on to the mind state with whatever is most predominant in the body. So I'm going to provide a little bit less guidance on this one, just because it's not as easy to, at least for me right now, in this stage of my journey, helping to guide people, to provide guidance on how they meet the mind, just because of how varied it can be. So just try to set an intention right now to be mindful of any moods or mind states, thoughts, and impulses. Okay? So gently closing the eyes. Just allowing the attention to rest on whatever is most predominant in the body. You found that there was a particular area of the breath that you found particularly supportive of your intention, you can bring your attention there now, or if you find that some strong sensation arises, you can allow your attention to rest on that aspect of your experience. And noticing whether or not you're experiencing the body as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Just taking a moment to rest the attention on that feeling tone, noticing any changes. And then staying connected to the body, checking in with the mind, and just seeing, is there any predominant mood right now? It's kind of a lens through which I'm seeing my experience. Maybe noticing if there is a predominant mood, how is that conditioning my experience of the body? Are there any thoughts associated with this mood? In the same way that we remain with the changing experience of the body, we can try to remain mindful with the changing experience in the mind, watching thoughts arise and pass away, Noticing changes to mood. Noticing whether or not the thoughts are associated with any impulse to act. And with the mind states, the moods, the thoughts, the impulses, noticing what is the feeling tone associated with the mood, with the thought, or the impulse. Is this a pleasant thought? Is this an unpleasant thought? Is it neither pleasant nor unpleasant thought? And likewise with the mood or the impulse. And gently opening our eyes. Rejoining the outer world. Anything to share around this? Did you find it easier or more difficult?
I'll go. I found it more difficult by far out of all of the ones we've done. Because I felt like I was trying to, focus on the breath, how I had done previously, to like feel it calm, but then, my mind would wander, and it wasn't like a mood. I was trying to like think the whole time, like, what mood am I feeling? But it just felt very like I couldn't identify anything, and then I would feel things in my body. So it just felt, it was the most difficult, definitely.
I don't think you're alone in that experience. I think that's a fairly common experience, which is part of the reason why we always ground it in, or at least for me, I always ground it in the body. We don't just start off with like, okay, let's examine our thoughts, right? Very easy to get swept away. So trying to always bring it back to the anchor in the body, noticing how we're experiencing the body through the feeling tone, and then noticing any thoughts that arise associated with that. Is just doing that over and over. I found that to be the only way that my thoughts became accessible to me in a more attentive way, where I didn't get lost in them. Anything else? Thumbs up if you're good. Got it. Okay, so basically what I've offered is, I like to think of it as like a curiosity practice. So as we're here in this, you know, more trying time, we can just bring this sort of curiosity to our experience. And by just really committing to this personally, that's how I made it through, you know, 42 days of silent retreat. At any moment, I was just like, I'm just going to check in with what's going on and see what I can find, you know, and that kept me coming back to sit. There was really only one time in my retreat where when I started looking into my experience, it was so unpleasant that it made me not want to check into it. And that's when I worked with my teachers to try to figure out what was going on. If any of you have that experience, I'm obviously happy to talk about it. You all know how to get a hold of me, but yeah, just encouraging everybody to use this. Like whenever you're sitting around and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I could take another minute of social isolation thing. Just say, okay, let me bring my curiosity to the body. Let me get curious about how I'm experiencing the body in terms of feeling tone. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And are there any mind states that are associated with it? And what's the feeling tone associated with the mind states? And just over and over in the feedback loop, checking how that affects the body. And reconnecting with the feeling tone, checking the mind states over and over. And you might be surprised by what you find. It's quite the experience as you kind of build up some momentum. Any other questions or comments, anything? Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. I loved it. I really appreciate your participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trev.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you all.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.